Welcome back to Clark USA fans. Caitlin, man, she's not just good. She's not just exciting. She's not even just the best collegiate player of her generation. She's a phenomenon in motion, and what we just witnessed with that latest Nike commercial wasn't a simple athlete spotlight. It wasn't about three-point range. It wasn't about highlight reels. It wasn't about hype. It was infrastructure. While millions of fans watched and debated her logo threes, while sports talk shows clipped reactions and argued about translation to the next level, something deeper was unfolding in plain sight. Nike didn't just feature Caitlin Clark. They positioned her. They encoded a future vision of women's basketball inside a 60-second narrative, and almost no one caught it. Let's slow this down. Because this wasn't marketing. It was a blueprint. The commercial opens in a familiar way. Doubt. Skepticism. Celebrity faces reacting with disbelief. Commentary layered over her range. It feels standard. The classic athlete arc. They question her. She proves them wrong. End scene. Except that's not what's really happening. What Nike captured wasn't simply confidence. They documented a mindset pattern. A psychological operating system that separates good players from transformative ones. And to understand that, we have to go back to Iowa. Not to sold-out arenas. Not to ESPN broadcasts. Not to national awards. To a slanted driveway. Cold winters. Uneven concrete. A hoop positioned on ground that tilted downhill. For most kids, that's just where you shoot. You adapt. You work around it. You adjust your form. You learn to compensate. Caitlin didn't. She asked for the grass to be torn up. She wanted a full three-point line painted. She wanted the slope fixed. Not because she was spoiled. Not because she wanted comfort. Because limitations frustrated her. Most athletes train inside their environment. Caitlin redesigned hers. That single childhood decision reveals everything about how she processes challenge. She doesn't ask, "How do I survive this?" She asks, "Why should this exist in the first place?" Shooting uphill changes your mechanics. It alters trajectory. It messes with muscle memory. It forces subconscious compensation. Most players would grind through it, build toughness around it. She eliminated it. That concrete pour wasn't home improvement. It was infrastructure for possibility. Her father didn't say yes because he predicted superstardom. He said yes because he saw something deeper. She wasn't asking for convenience. She was demanding excellence on her own terms. And that theme never left her. At every level, the script repeated. High school to college? They said range wouldn't translate. College to pro? They said WNBA defenders would close space too fast. Professional scouts questioned shot selection. Analysts labeled deep threes as low-percentage ego shots.
Combining for 42 of Vegas's 61 points.
The same story, different chapter. And every single time, she responded identically. Not with debate. Not with press conferences. Not with adjustments to satisfy critics. With results. Defenses couldn't drop coverage. She'd pull from 30 feet. They couldn't trap too high. She'd split it. They couldn't press. She'd exploit the gap. They couldn't play traditional help because her gravity bent the floor. That's the word. Gravity. Caitlin Clark doesn't just shoot. She warps defensive geometry. And here's where Nike's commercial becomes strategic genius. Those celebrities in the ad? They aren't random. They symbolize every voice that questioned whether her game would scale. Every expert who said, "That won't work here." Nike framed doubt as a recurring character in her career. Then they showed execution, destroying it.
No argument.
No speech. Just shot after shot. The structure of the ad mirrors her life pattern. Doubt introduced, doubt erased. That's not accidental storytelling. That's brand alignment with trajectory. Now, let's talk numbers. Her rookie season generated $36 million in measurable economic impact. Not projected potential. Not theoretical hype. Measured activity. Nearly 27% of the WNBA's total economic movement connected to one player, and she missed games due to injury. Pause there. One athlete, operating below full capacity, moving more financial energy than entire veteran clusters. Cities felt it when she arrived. Hotels booked out. Restaurants doubled business. Merchandise sales spiked. TV ratings surged. When she didn't play, they dropped. That's not fandom. That's market force. So what does Nike do with that? They don't just sell a shoe. They embed her origin story. Because the driveway isn't nostalgia. It's philosophy. Space is negotiable. Distance is optional. Limits are removable. When Caitlin extended her range beyond traditional comfort zones, she forced defensive systems to expand. When she stepped across half court with shooting confidence, she didn't just take a deeper shot. She altered the entire spatial economy of the game. That's what transformative athletes do. Good athletes maximize their environment. Transformative athletes redesign it. And Nike sees beyond this season. Because 2026 isn't about footwear. It's about scale. Women's basketball is entering a structural shift. Broadcast deals are evolving. Arena capacities are expanding. Sponsorship models are recalibrating. The audience demographic is diversifying. Nike isn't reacting. They're pre-positioning. By anchoring Caitlin's identity in transformation rather than flash, they align her brand with the league's evolution. They're saying, this isn't a moment. It's a movement. Think about the psychology. If you frame her as the best shooter, that's skill-based. If you frame her as changing the game, that's legacy-based.
Nike shows legacy.
Shot clock is off. The Fever can play for the final possession. Nobody picks up Clark.
They didn't film mechanics. They filmed inevitability. And insiders see it. Because when one rookie can influence nearly a third of league economic activity, stakeholders reposition. Investors reassess. Media partners renegotiate tone. Veteran players recalibrate marketing presence. This isn't about replacing anyone. It's about expansion pressure. When attendance jumps. When jerseys sell out. When highlight clips cross demographic barriers. When casual fans convert into consistent viewers. That's ecosystem growth. And the driveway story subtly reinforces the message. She doesn't shrink to fit structures. Structures expand around her. It's the same pattern we saw defensively. The coaches weren't studying how to stop her. They were studying how to contain her. Containment is acknowledgement of inevitability. You don't contain average. You contain force. And Nike positioned her as force. Look again at the commercial tone. It doesn't feel desperate. It doesn't oversell. It doesn't scream. It observes. Because confidence doesn't need volume. It needs repetition. Shot after shot.
Clip after clip.
Moment after moment. The ad isn't shouting, she's the future. It's whispering, you're already watching it. And that's more powerful. The economic ripple effect proves it's not hypothetical. When merchandise numbers spike across road arenas, that's portable stardom. When broadcast ratings rise nationally, that's scalable visibility. When casual fans tune in just to see how far she'll shoot from, that's curiosity turning into loyalty. And when kids start practicing from deeper range because of her influence, that's cultural shift. Remember, she didn't extend her range for spectacle. She extended it because she trained where distance felt normal. That driveway normalized what others called extreme. Now, arenas normalize it too. So, what did Nike really reveal? They revealed that women's basketball isn't waiting for validation anymore. It's generating gravitational pull. They revealed that the next era isn't about fitting into old molds. It's about expanding them. They revealed that transformation starts with mindset long before it hits national TV. And they revealed that 2026 won't be about a product launch. It will be about structural acceleration. When you align a generational athlete with a global brand at the exact moment a league is surging, you're not just advertising. You're architecting momentum. Caitlin Clark's story isn't about proving people wrong. It's about making old doubts irrelevant. From that Iowa driveway to sold-out arenas, the theme never changed. Remove the obstacle. Expand the range. Redesign the space. And when the world finally catches up, they'll call it sudden. But it won't be sudden. It will be years in the making. Poured in concrete. Painted in white lines. practiced in freezing winters, and encoded, quietly, in a Nike commercial that most people thought was just about shooting.
Stay locked in.
Because what we're witnessing isn't just a star rising. It's a landscape shifting. And once you see the blueprint, everything clicks.
I would have loved to have seen Veronica Burton put the ball on the...
Local economies didn't guess what was happening. They measured it. City officials tracked increased foot traffic around arenas. Parking authorities reported revenue spikes on nights her team came to town. Merchandise vendors who once relied on playoff runs to hit record numbers suddenly reached those benchmarks during regular season games. This wasn't hype. It wasn't social media exaggeration. Economists weren't estimating based on projections or sentiment. They were calculating real transactions, real spending, real economic velocity that simply did not exist before one specific player entered the league, Caitlin Clark. The 27% figure tells a deeper story than headlines ever could. The entire WNBA, 12 teams, decades of history, hundreds of athletes who built the foundation brick by brick, generated roughly $133 million in total economic impact that season. One rookie accounted for more than a quarter of that movement. And here's what makes it even more staggering. She didn't play a full, flawless season. She missed games. She dealt with injury. She navigated the typical learning curve every first-year player faces. She wasn't statistically dominating every single night. She was adjusting to speed, strength, and defensive schemes that represent the highest level of women's basketball on the planet. Yet her presence alone altered economic patterns across multiple cities. Think about that carefully. Presence. Not perfection. Not championship hardware. Not a scoring title. Presence. Television networks noticed almost immediately. Broadcast numbers for games featuring her team began rivaling certain regular season matchups in the NBA. Advertisers who had previously overlooked WNBA inventory suddenly competed for commercial space during her games. Streaming platforms reported engagement metrics that shattered prior league benchmarks. Social media impressions surged into territory the league had never touched before. This wasn't slow, organic growth. It was an instantaneous spike triggered by a single arrival. For the first time in league history, executives weren't arguing from optimism. They weren't pitching potential. They had hard evidence that one player could fundamentally shift the business model. And that kind of proof changes everything. Sponsors can't claim women's basketball lacks audience when viewership data contradicts them. Broadcast partners can't negotiate lower rights fees when ratings justify premium valuation. Venue operators can't question demand when arenas consistently approach capacity. Caitlin Clark didn't just play well. She became leverage. When she recorded triple-doubles, the highlights circulated. But the numbers off the court told an even louder story. Nike executives watched those figures climb with precision. To many observers, the $36 million economic impact looked like an anomaly, lightning in a bottle. To Nike, it looked like foundation. They understood something critical, that money didn't only come from existing fans. It came from new eyes. Families who had never attended a WNBA game bought tickets. Young girls who previously lacked visible professional role models began asking for jerseys. Casual sports fans who tuned in out of curiosity started following standings. That $36 million wasn't a ceiling. It was a floor. And she generated that while injured, while adapting, while learning professional rotations and defensive coverages. Imagine the multiplication factor when she's fully healthy, when chemistry with teammates matures, when professional instincts sharpen, when opponents no longer surprise her with schemes she hasn't seen. The projection isn't linear. It's exponential.
No space. Connecticut everywhere. There's Clark with Banner.
Nike's commercial wasn't celebrating a completed journey. It was positioning inevitability. The message wasn't "look what she did." It was "watch what happens next." By 2026, Nike intends to validate that projection in the most strategic way possible, through a signature shoe embedded inside a growing economic ecosystem rather than dropped into a fleeting hype cycle. Most signature shoe launches follow a predictable blueprint: limited releases, artificial scarcity, premium pricing, Exclusivity fuels desire. Sneaker culture thrives on it. Collectors camp outside stores. Secondary markets inflate value. Shoes become artifacts more than athletic tools. It's a system perfected over decades, particularly through entities like Jordan Brand and lines associated with global icons. But Caitlin Clark examined that blueprint and pushed back. Her philosophy challenged the very model that made Nike's basketball division a powerhouse. Instead of scarcity, she advocated access. Instead of limited drops, broader distribution. Instead of collector-focused hype, youth-centered reach. According to Nike leadership, including CEO Elliott Hill, the shoe is being built with her input at every level: logo design, material selection, pricing philosophy, and distribution scale. That shift matters. Exclusivity in men's basketball works because the audience infrastructure already exists. Boys around the world grow up immersed in basketball culture. They see themselves represented constantly. They have established pathways, from grassroots circuits to international academies. Women's basketball is still scaling globally. The audience isn't saturated. It's expanding. Making her shoe artificially scarce would replicate the very barriers she has been breaking on the court. It would tell kids in lower-income communities, in international markets where women's basketball remains underdeveloped, that representation exists, but access doesn't. She refused that contradiction. Her approach mirrors her playing style. When she shoots from 30 feet, she challenges traditional range assumptions. When she pushes for global distribution at accessible pricing, she challenges traditional market segmentation. Both decisions require belief that expansion outweighs exclusivity. Industry analysts already project 9-figure revenue potential, with some suggesting her line could enter the top 5 signature franchises across all basketball categories, male or female. Yet when she speaks publicly, she rarely emphasizes profit. She talks about reach. About girls who need to see tangible proof that their dreams are valid. About eliminating the distance between aspiration and opportunity. Initially, some inside Nike worried that this approach might compress margins. But volume economics tell a different story. Broader distribution increases unit sales. Lower price points expand demographic penetration. And cultivating loyalty at age 8 or 9 builds lifetime brand relationships far more valuable than limited collector flips. It's a long-game strategy rather than a short-term spike. That philosophy connects directly to Nike's recent corporate context. As the world's largest sportswear company, Nike has faced intensified competition and shifting consumer behavior. Aligning with a generational athlete whose brand emphasizes accessibility allows them to reposition culturally while expanding commercially. They aren't merely selling shoes. They're selling participation. The from anywhere messaging embedded in marketing materials isn't about shooting distance. It's about origin stories. It communicates that geography, background, and infrastructure do not dictate ceilings. That an Iowa driveway can produce global influence. That belief, when supported structurally, becomes movement. Another strategic element stands out: the timing. Nike could have rushed the shoe.
As she loses Lainey Hamilton.
Rookie season momentum was massive. Marketing textbooks typically advise immediate capitalization. Strike while headlines dominate. Convert attention into product revenue before the cycle shifts. Retail partners likely pushed for acceleration. Instead, Nike delayed until spring 2026, roughly 18 months after her professional debut. That decision reveals deeper strategy. They aren't chasing noise. They're synchronizing with infrastructure. By 2026, several variables converge. She will be fully recovered physically. The league's expansion plans will likely introduce new markets. Television deals continue evolving, increasing visibility. International audiences already invested in following her development will represent established demand rather than speculative outreach. Launching then embeds the shoe into a matured ecosystem rather than testing it in volatile rookie-year momentum. It transforms the release from reactionary to inevitable. The economic data gave Nike confidence to wait. They're not gambling. They're capitalizing on documented patterns. She has already demonstrated capacity to move markets. The evidence isn't theoretical, It's transactional. And here's the larger implication. Once one athlete proves that kind of leverage, it recalibrates negotiations across the board. Future stars will enter contract discussions referencing this precedent. Agents will cite measurable economic contribution when structuring endorsement deals. League executives will approach media rights talks with reinforced confidence. One player's gravity can alter institutional posture. This doesn't diminish other athletes. It expands the entire platform. When broadcast numbers rise, sponsorship dollars follow. When sponsorship dollars increase, salary structures strengthen. When youth participation grows, grassroots ecosystems expand. It's a chain reaction. Nike recognized that the $36 million wasn't about jump shots alone. It was about attention reallocation, about converting curiosity into sustained engagement, about proving that women's basketball doesn't require external validation. It requires visibility scaled properly. Her refusal to embrace exclusivity reinforces that mission. She understands that cultural shifts happen when accessibility aligns with inspiration. A shoe sitting in a collector's glass case doesn't change participation rates. A shoe worn by a 10-year-old on a public court does. By 2026, the convergence of health, league growth, global interest, and brand infrastructure positions the launch not as a test, but as confirmation. Confirmation that expansion beats restriction. That volume can rival scarcity. That belief scales when systems support it. What began as economic ripple effects in local arenas has evolved into strategic repositioning at corporate levels. Parking revenues and concession lines were early indicators. Television contracts and global distribution strategies are long-term consequences. And through all of it, the central thread remains consistent. She doesn't adapt to narrow systems. Systems widen around her. From shifting defensive schemes to altering market models, the pattern repeats. She challenges assumptions.
Institution recalibrate.
The sport expands. By the time that signature shoe hits shelves in 2026, it won't represent a rookie sensation. It will symbolize documented transformation. The data will have accumulated. The audience will have broadened. The infrastructure will have solidified. And what once looked like an anomaly will look like inevitability.
Knocks it down! Her third three of the quarter!
Media partnerships are no longer speculative conversations happening behind closed doors. They're signed. Broadcast deals aren't being tested. They're expanding. Networks that once treated women's basketball as secondary programming are now structuring schedules around marquee matchups. Streaming platforms are integrating advanced promotion strategies. Sponsors are committing to multi-year agreements instead of short-term trial runs. And at the center of this acceleration stands one reality that Nike understood better than most. Caitlin Clark's second professional season is unfolding, and that changes everything. Because rookie seasons create excitement. Sophomore seasons create legitimacy. When Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, she carried collegiate superstardom, record-breaking shooting, and viral highlights with her. But historically, leagues are filled with rookies who shine brightly before defensive adjustments expose weaknesses. The true test of generational athletes is never their debut, it's their response to adaptation. Defenders now have a full off-season of film study. Coaches dissect tendencies frame by frame. Training staffs design schemes specifically engineered to limit impact. The novelty factor fades. What remains is sustainability. Nike needed that confirmation. Her rookie season proved one player could move economic indicators in women's basketball. Television ratings surged. Local economies spiked. Merchandise demand exploded. That was proof of concept. But proof of sustainability requires repetition under pressure. It requires demonstrating that impact survives strategic countermeasures. That market interest persists after headlines cool. That defensive adjustments don't dilute influence. This is where historical precedent matters. Nike has studied signature athlete arcs with obsessive precision. Consider Michael Jordan. His first signature shoe, the Air Jordan 1, didn't drop randomly during his rookie campaign. Nike spent months constructing narrative gravity. They leaned into controversy with the NBA over banned colorways. They engineered cultural tension. They built mythology before product saturation. The shoe succeeded not just because of performance, but because the ecosystem was primed. The same pattern followed with LeBron James. Nike positioned him as the chosen one long before his first professional game tipped off. High school broadcasts elevated him into national consciousness. Anticipation matured over time. When his first signature shoe launched, it landed on narrative soil that had already been cultivated. Every signature line that became a cultural phenomenon followed that blueprint. Foundation first, product second. Timing mattered more than hype. Caitlin Clark's delayed 2026 launch aligns precisely with that logic. Nike executives aren't gambling on potential. They're investing in pattern recognition. Rookie-year economics validated her drawing power. Second-year performance confirms resilience. By spring 2026, there will be 2 full seasons of evidence. Television ratings tracked across cycles, sustained attendance growth, measurable economic multipliers, international engagement metrics that show trend lines instead of spikes. That patience communicates belief.
Goes by her first 2.
Nike isn't launching a shoe. They're launching a franchise, a multi-year, multi-product, globally scalable brand extension. That kind of initiative demands infrastructure, not impulse. They've learned from past miscalculations. Signature lines have failed when brands rushed product ahead of story. Athletes have burned out when commercial pressure outpaced professional development. With Caitlin, they're building differently, slower, deeper, more strategically layered. And when 2026 arrives, the release won't feel experimental. It will feel inevitable. Now, let's examine the commercial itself. Most viewers saw highlight shots and celebrity cameos. But Nike didn't film a commercial. They filmed documentation of inevitability. Every structural element carries symbolic weight. Celebrities represent doubt. Skepticism is voiced casually. Then execution responds. Shot attempted. Shot made. Doubt recalibrated. Pattern repeats. Each cycle increases stakes. Each repetition weakens skepticism. By the end, doubt doesn't disappear. It transforms into reluctant acknowledgement. That storytelling structure mirrors her career arc. From high school to college to professional play, critics have consistently questioned translation. That range won't work. That style won't scale. That confidence won't survive elite defense. Each time, performance restructured perception. Nike captured that process, not just her shooting range. The deeper message extends beyond basketball mechanics. It reflects entrepreneurial psychology. She doesn't treat "that won't work" as final judgment. She treats it as temporary resistance requiring superior execution. That mindset builds movements. Women's basketball has heard "that won't work" for decades. Won't generate revenue. Won't sustain viewership. Won't justify expansion. Won't attract global sponsorship. Caitlin's documented $36 million economic impact, tracked, calculated, verified, functions as the made shot in that pattern cycle. Evidence forces revision. The 2026 shoe launch represents the next iteration of that proof cycle. Stakes rise. Skeptics present new doubts. Execution responds with new metrics. The commercial's brilliance lies in simplicity. It doesn't argue. It demonstrates. It doesn't demand validation. It showcases results. Casual fans enjoy highlight moments. Analysts studying sports economics recognize the infrastructure blueprint beneath the surface. That dual-layer communication is masterclass marketing. Nike embedded macroeconomic narrative under accessible visuals. They made the message universal while encoding transformation signals for industry insiders. Caitlin Clark's progression from a slanted Iowa driveway to a global signature line isn't isolated triumph. It's proof of concept. The $36 million impact wasn't a ceiling, it was foundation. The rejection of exclusivity wasn't a risk, it was expansion strategy. The delayed timing wasn't hesitation, it was synchronization. Everything aligns toward inflection. By 2026, women's basketball will operate in territory historically reserved for men's leagues, billion-dollar valuation discussions, global merchandising ecosystems, multi-platform branding influence extending beyond game outcomes. Media narratives will shift from novelty to normalization. Sponsorship frameworks will evolve from experimental to essential. And at the center of that structural shift is a player who refuses to shrink her game or her vision to fit outdated parameters. She's not just participating in women's basketball's growth. She's accelerating its timeline. The future isn't a distant forecast. It's unfolding in measurable increments, in broadcast contracts signed, in attendance reports filed, in youth participation increases recorded, in international distribution plans mapped. Nike didn't just advertise a player. They charted a map, a roadmap illustrating where women's basketball heads next. A strategic outline explaining why 2026 represents an inflection point industry analysts will reference for years. A demonstration that belief, when paired with execution and institutional backing, scales. And perhaps the most important takeaway, none of this feels accidental. The driveway story, the rookie year economics, the sophomore validation, the delayed launch, the accessibility philosophy, the global distribution insistence. Each piece interlocks. What we're witnessing isn't a marketing cycle. It's structural evolution. Women's basketball is entering a phase defined by scalability, sustainability, and global relevance. The economic model works when properly supported. The audience exists when properly engaged. The impact multiplies when belief aligns with infrastructure. Caitlin Clark isn't merely rewriting record books. She's rewriting expectations. When the signature shoe drops in 2026, it won't simply mark a commercial milestone. It will symbolize confirmed transformation of narrative, of economics, of cultural perception. The blueprint was there all along. Most viewers saw three-pointers. Nike saw trajectory. And trajectory, when sustained across seasons, across markets, across platforms, becomes destiny. The future isn't coming. According to the blueprint being executed in real time, it's already here. We just had to look closely enough to recognize it landing.